Imagine standing in a dark, muddy tunnel with just a headlamp as light, hundreds of feet below ground, when all of a sudden you hear a thunderous roar that rattles the walls around you. Water starts to pour in, cold and relentless, quickly rising from your ankles to your knees. There's no way up, no light, and every tunnel you turn into is filling with icy water faster than you can run. In 1989, a group of Kentucky coal miners faced this exact nightmare, trapped beneath tons of rock as a river surged into the mine. This is the story of their desperate fight for survival as the mine became a watery tomb and the rescuers who raced against time to save them. The story begins in the quiet, mountainous region of southeastern Kentucky. In the small town of Wheatcroft, coal mining wasn't just a job, it was a way of life. Many families had worked in the coal mines for generations, and the men in town knew the mines almost as well as their own homes. They went down to the depths daily, putting their lives on the line to power a growing nation and feed their families. On an autumn morning in 1989, a group of miners descended into the Wheatcroft mine for what they thought would be a typical day. The job had its risks, yes, but nothing they hadn't faced before. Little did they know, conditions beneath the surface were about to take a fatal turn. The miners rode down the elevator shaft. The air thickened with the familiar scent of coal dust. They moved to their designated workstations, each one deep within the Earth's belly. The atmosphere down there was always damp and cool, but today, something felt different. As they began working, some miners noticed small streams of water trickling down the rock walls. The water wasn't an unusual sight. It happened occasionally, especially during rainy seasons, but today the flow seemed heavier. A couple of the older miners exchanged worried glances. They had learned through experiences to respect every shift in the environment. In the dark environment of a coal mine, even the smallest changes could spell trouble. As hours passed, the trickles turned into a steady flow. By midday, small pools were forming at the edges of their work area. Radios crackled with updates from miners working in different sections of the mine. They reported seeing water seeping from cracks that hadn't been there that morning. Meanwhile, above ground, rain began to pour, and it wasn't long before the nearby river started to swell. What the miners didn't know was that far above them, floodwaters were infiltrating the soil around the mine. The earth, saturated with rain, was now exerting enormous pressure on the mine's weak points. Then it happened. A loud crack echoed through the tunnels, followed by a sudden roar as water burst into the mine. It poured in like a broken dam, rushing through every available opening. Panic spread as the miners realized what was happening. They dropped their tools and bolted towards the exits, but the tunnels were already filling with water at an alarming rate. The lights flickered, and the roar of rushing water grew deafening. Shadows danced along the walls as the miners splashed through knee-deep water, struggling to find a way out. Water was now flowing down every corridor and into every chamber. Those who weren't fast enough quickly found themselves trapped as water rose around them. For those who couldn't reach the exit in time, survival meant finding higher ground. The miners who were cut off from the exit began climbing onto any elevated surface they could find: equipment, rock ledges, anything that would keep them above the rising water. But as the water level climbed higher, their hope of rescue faded. Darkness closed in, and every breath felt like it could be their last. Picture the pitch-black darkness, the smell of damp earth mixed with coal, the crushing weight of hundreds of feet of rock above you, and the relentless, icy water creeping up. All they could hear was the splashing and gasping of their fellow miners, everyone trying to stay calm, but thinking the worst. Meanwhile, above ground, news of the disaster spread quickly. Rescue teams from nearby towns rushed to the site, bringing equipment and manpower to help pump the water out. But it was no simple task. The mine's tunnels were deep, and the flooding was relentless, fueled by the swelling river that kept pushing water through every crack and crevice. The families of the miners gathered at the entrance, desperate for news. They stood in the rain, watching as rescuers worked tirelessly to breach the flooded shafts. Every hour that passed with no news made their hope wane a little more. All they could do was wait, pray, and hope for a miracle. Back in the mine, the water continued to rise. For hours, trapped miners clung to hope. Some managed to find small air pockets, crouching on whatever high ground they could find. Others held hands or prayed quietly, hoping their loved ones would know they fought until the very end. The dread creeping in with each passing minute as the oxygen thinned and every breath became harder. The darkness around them was thick, and the only sounds were the quiet sobs, the dripping of water, and the creaking of the mine structure around them. Above ground, rescuers faced impossible odds. As they tried to drain the mine, they also sent teams in with life-saving equipment, hoping to find any survivors. But the water was still too high, and it was rising faster than they could pump it out. The river was relentless, pushing more water into the mine with every passing minute. Rescue attempts continued for hours, but eventually, the hope of reaching all of the miners alive started to fade. The community was devastated. Families clung to each other, fearing the worst, but unwilling to abandon hope until the last possible moment. When rescuers finally managed to drain a significant amount of water, they entered the mine, hoping for a miracle. What they found was heartbreaking. Many of the miners had succumbed to the rising waters, unable to hold out in the flooded chambers. For some, it appeared that they tried to climb to safety until the very end, using whatever means they could to stay above water. The community was devastated. The miners who survived were hailed as heroes, but they returned home with the scars of that horrific day, forever haunted by the memory of those they'd lost. It was a tragic reminder of the dangers these workers faced daily, with each descent into the dark, uncertain depths of the mine. The Kentucky coal mine flood of 1989 is remembered as one of the darkest days in the town's history. The disaster prompted investigations and brought attention to the need for better safety protocols in the industry. But for those who lost loved ones, no safety measure could ever bring back their men who perished in the dark in the flooded tunnels beneath their feet. To this day, the tragedy remains a haunting reminder of the risks taken by those who work underground, the fragile line between life and death, and the silent, powerful forces of nature that can change everything in an instant. The story of the 1989 Kentucky coal mine flooding isn't just a story of tragedy, it's a story of resilience, courage, and community. It's a testament to the brave men and women who go to work every day in some of the world's most dangerous conditions, all for the sake of their families and communities. And it's a reminder of the power of nature, which can strike in the most unexpected and devastating ways. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as haunting as we did, don't forget to like and subscribe for more truly tragic stories.